Lecture 29. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Virtual University's course on Business and Technical Communication. Today, we will look at writing proposals in a business situation. In today's lecture, you will learn about the different varieties of proposal writing situations. We'll look at proposal readers as investors and talk about that. What are they investing? We'll also look at the questions that readers are most likely to ask, questions that readers ask most often, as we have done with other forms of business writing. We'll look at a strategy of conventional superstructure for proposals, and we'll obviously go over the superstructure of proposals, which will include the introduction, the problem, and the problem will keep in mind the situations when the reader will define the problem for you, or when the readers will provide a general statement of purpose, and also when situations when you must define the problem yourself. We'll also look at objectives, product, method, resources, schedule, management, and costs. So keeping in mind all these things, we'll look at the general superstructure of proposals. Now, firstly, let's have a look at the different varieties of proposal writing situations. What are the different situations in which you will be needed to, or where you can be called upon to write a business proposal? You may write proposals in a wide variety of situations. It could be that your readers may be employed in your organization, or they may be employed in other organizations. Your readers may have asked you to submit a proposal, or you may submit a proposal to them of your own initiative. Your proposal may be in competition against other proposals, or it may be considered on its own merits alone. In other situations, your proposal may need to be approved by various people in your organization before you submit it to your readers, or there could be situations where you may submit the proposal directly yourself and you don't need permission from anybody else. It could also be that you may have to follow strict guidelines concerning the content, structure and format of your proposal, or conversely, you may be free to write the proposal entirely as you feel, as you think fit. But there could also be a possibility that once you have delivered the proposal to your readers, they may follow a wide variety of methods for evaluating the proposal. So you would need to keep that in mind as well. How will your proposal be evaluated, or what method will your readers be using when evaluating the proposal, or what is the purpose of the readers when they will be evaluating your proposal? So keeping all of these things in mind, keeping all these different situations in mind, you will be writing your proposal, or you could be engaged in one or many of these different situations during your business life, and write your proposals accordingly. Let's have a look at an example where a proposal needed to be written. Helen wanted a permission to undertake a special project. She thought that her employers should develop a computer system that employees could use to reserve conference rooms. She concluded that her company needed such a system, as she had arrived for a meeting several times only to find that the room was reserved for somebody else. As she is employed to write computer programs, she is well qualified to write one that could reserve conference rooms. However, she cannot work on this new program without the permission of her boss. Consequently, she wrote a proposal to her boss. As she wrote, she had to think about two people, her boss and her boss's boss, who had to decide without consulting other people. These two people were her readers, her own boss and the boss of her boss. Because her employers had no specific guidelines, she could use any format, structure and content to write her proposal. Furthermore, she did not need anyone else's permission to write the proposal, although she would need an approval for sending a proposal to another department. Now, as you saw, she was going to write the proposal of her own initiative. किसी ने उनको कहा नहीं था कि आप प्रपोजल लिखें. हेलन ने खुद एक प्रॉब्लम आइडेंटिफाई की और उन्होंने सोचा कि मैं अपने बॉस को एक प्रपोजल भेजती हूँ कि मैं इस प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व कर सकती हूँ एक नया कंप्यूटर प्रोग्राम बना के, और उन्हें खुद उस प्रपोजल को लिखा। क्योंकि उनकी कंपनी की कोई ख़ास गाइडलाइंस नहीं थी तो उनको फॉर्मेट वगैरह वो अपनी मर्जी से चूज़ कर सकती थी। क्योंकि उनने वो प्रपोजल सिर्फ अपने ही बॉस को और उन्हीं के डायरेक्ट बॉस को दिखाना था, इसलिए उनको किसी की इजाज़त की भी ज़रूरत नहीं थी। अगर वो किसी और डिपार्टमेंट में या किसी और कंपनी में वो प्रपोजल भेज रही होती तो फिर उनको शायद अपने बॉस से इजाज़त लेने की ज़रूरत पड़ती। So keeping all these things in mind, then she started writing her proposal. Also, Helen did not need to think about competition from other departments or competition from other people who were proposing similar projects, because hers would be considered on its own merit. उनकी कंपनी में और कोई लोग नहीं थे जो इस टाइप का प्रोग्राम डिजाइन करना चाह रहे थे, वो अकेली थी, तो इसलिए उनको कंपटीशन भी नहीं था. However, her proposal had to be persuasive enough to convince her readers that her time would be better utilized making this new program rather than her regular duties. अब जाहिर है अगर उनने एक नया प्रोग्राम डिज़ाइन करना है तो उसके लिए उनको टाइम चाहिए था, उसके लिए शायद कुछ उनको बजट भी एलोकेट कराना हो, तो अब उनने अपने पढ़ने वालों को, अपने जो कि उनके बॉस थे, उनको ये कन्विंस करना है कि जो प्रपोजल वो दे रही हैं, जो काम करना चाह रही हैं, वो ज़्यादा मुफीद है कंपनी के लिए बनिस्बत उस काम के जो वो इस वक्त मौजूदा हाल में कर रही हैं. क्योंकि जाहिर है वो अपना कुछ काम कर रही थी, इसी के लिए वो एम्प्लॉय की गई थी उस कंपनी में, तो वो जितना भी टाइम लगेगा नया प्रोग्राम बनाने में, उस टाइम में अपने पिछले काम को छोड़ेंगी, निगलेक्ट करेंगी या किसी और को देंगी. सो शी नीडेड ऑब्वियसली टू get permission from her boss, and she needed to convince her boss that the company would be better off by having Helen work on that new computer program. Now let's have a look at another example. ये तो हमने देखा एक एग्जाम्पल, एक प्रपोजल की सिचुएशन. अब एक और सिचुएशन देखते हैं जिसमें किसी और ने एक प्रपोजल लिखना है. This second proposal will be written under much different circumstances than Helen's. To begin with, 3 different people would write this proposal. Let's assume that the writers were a producer, a scriptwriter, and a business manager seeking funds from a non-profit organization and the federal government to produce television programs. The department learned that the government was interested in making programs about the environment. To learn more about what the government wanted, the writers obtained copies of the request for proposals that the government had issued out. अब ये सिचुएशन ऐसी थी जिसमें 3 लोग इन्वॉल्व थे जो कि एक डिपार्टमेंट में काम कर रहे हैं एक साथ, और उनको फंड्स चाहिए एक नॉन प्रॉफिट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से और सरकार से भी कि उनको कुछ पैसा मिले कि वो एनवायरनमेंट पे प्रोग्राम्स बनाएं. उनको ये पता चला कि गवर्नमेंट एनवायरनमेंट के ऊपर प्रोग्राम्स बनाने पे पैसा देना चाह रही है. अब जाहिर है गवर्नमेंट ने भी कुछ रिक्वेस्ट फॉर प्रपोजल्स पब्लिश किए अखबारों में या और कहीं, और तो उन लोगों ने इन 3 लोगों ने उनकी कॉपीज ली ताकि उनको पता चले कि आखिर गवर्नमेंट किस टाइप के प्रोग्राम्स बना रही है, और गवर्नमेंट की नीड्स देख के ही वो अपना प्रपोजल देंगे. क्योंकि जाहिर है अगर आपने किसी को कन्विंस करना है कि आपका प्रपोजल अच्छा है तो आपको पहले से ये पता होना चाहिए कि जो आपके रीडर्स हैं उनकी नीड्स क्या हैं, ताकि आप फिर अपने प्रपोजल में उन नीड्स को एड्रेस कर सकें. So in their proposal, these 3 writers addressed an audience that was very different from Helen's audience. Helen's audience was only her boss and her boss's boss. The audience for these 3 people were people in the non-profit organization and people in the federal government. Let's have a look at who all would have a look at their proposals. Now, we all know that the government receives many proposals every day. Many people are asking the government for their funds. Let's assume that this government received about 4 proposals daily, and they only funded one of those proposals every day. To evaluate the proposals that the government gets, it sends them to experts across the country. मुख्तलिफ experts को वो proposals भेजते हैं कि इनको देखें, इनको evaluate करें, ये कैसे हैं, और फिर वो experts उन proposals को review करके उनका एक review लिखते हैं. Now these reviews are then read by staff at the government. जो गवर्नमेंट के लोग हैं वो खुद ज़रूरी नहीं है कि सारे प्रपोजल को खुद रिव्यू करें, एक्सपर्ट्स रिव्यू करते हैं, उनको एक समरी भेज देते हैं कि हमने ये इनका रिव्यू किया. Now when the staff at the government reviews these, then they make a decision, and depending on which proposal has received the best review, best response from the experts, they decide to give the money to those people. तो खासे लोग इन्वॉल्व होते हैं फाइनल डिसीजन में. गवर्नमेंट के अपने लोग हैं जो उन प्रपोजल्स को फॉरवर्ड कर रहे हैं. जाहिर है जो प्रपोजल उनको शुरू में ही बेकार लगेंगे उनको शायद वो एक्सपर्ट्स को भेजें भी ना. फिर वो एक्सपर्ट्स हैं जो उनको पढ़ रहे हैं, फिर वो लोग हैं जो उन एक्सपर्ट्स के रिव्यू को पढ़ रहे हैं, और ये सब इन सब लोगों की नज़रों से, हाथों से ये प्रपोजल को गुजरना है. So before the writers could even mail the proposal to the government, they had to obtain the approval of their own department. They had to get approval from several administrators at the television station or where they were working, or the producer with whom they were working. पहले तो हमने बात की कि गवर्नमेंट के पास जब पहुंचे तब किन किन लोगों की नज़रों से प्रपोजल गुजरेगा, लेकिन उससे पहले भी उन्हें अप्रूवल लेना है अपने डिपार्टमेंट से, अपनी कंपनी से. एंड this obviously they need this approval because the proposal would, if it's accepted, then it would be a contract between the station, the television station, and the government. So obviously just 3 people working alone in an organization cannot send out a proposal on behalf of the organization. They need approval from the higher ups within the organization as well, because it becomes a binding contract if it's approved. So the station then, the administration at the station looks at the proposal, assures itself that all the things that have been mentioned in the proposal, all the promises that have been made, all the things that will be in the contract will be beneficial to it. These were just examples of 2 very different types of situations in which proposals can be written. Obviously there are a multitude of situations, and these will vary from person to person and from purpose to purpose. Another thing that we need to keep in mind, apart from the fact that proposals are written under different situations, is that proposal readers are investors. The proposals written by Helen and the 3 writers from the TV station illustrate some of the differences between the different proposal writing situations, but despite these differences, almost all proposal writing situations have 2 important features in common. One is that in your proposals, you ask decision makers to invest some resources, such as time and money, so that the thing that you propose can be done. The other thing that is common in all proposals is that your readers will make their investment very cautiously. They will be acutely aware that their resources are limited, that if they decide to invest in the purchase of the projects that you propose, if they decide to allocate resources to the projects that you propose, then those resources cannot be available for other users. तो ये 2 चीज़ें जो हैं ये बहुत ज़रूरी हैं कि आपके दिमाग में हों जब आप एक प्रपोजल लिख रहे हैं. पहली तो ये कि जिनने भी आपके प्रपोजल की बेसिस पे डिसीजन लेना है, उनने अपना टाइम और पैसा आपके पीछे, आपके प्रपोजल में आपके प्रोजेक्ट में लगाना है. और दूसरा ये कि जब जाहिर है किसी ने अपना टाइम और पैसा लगाना है तो वो बहुत सोच समझ के, बहुत कॉशियसली उसको इस्तेमाल करेंगे. तो आपका प्रपोजल इतना कन्विंसिंग होना चाहिए कि वो अपना टाइम और पैसा उसमें लगाने में इंटरेस्टेड हों. द रीडर्स आर मोस्ट लाइकली टू आस्क सम क्वेश्चंस. As cautious investors, proposal readers will ask questions about purchases, about the project, and about the other things that are proposed to them. But from depending on situation to situation, whatever the situation is, most questions will remain the same. Some questions will vary, but generally, by and large, the proposal readers will be asking, or the investors will be asking, the same type of questions. And also the answers that people at work find persuasive and satisfying are also the same type. One basic thing that readers will want addressed is the problem. Your readers will want to know why you are making the proposal and why they should be interested in it. ज़ाहिर है वो जानना चाहेंगे कि आप ये प्रपोजल क्यों लिख रहे हैं और उनका उसमें क्या फ़ायदा है, वो इस प्रपोजल में पैसा या टाइम लगाने में क्यों इंटरेस्टेड होंगे. ऑल्सो दे विल नीड टू नो what problems or needs or goals your proposal will address, and why is that problem, goal or need important to them. जो भी आप चीज़ एड्रेस कर रहे हैं उसमें वो उनके लिए क्यों ज़रूरी है. अब जाहिर है you will then, keeping in mind that the reader will be asking these questions, you will be giving out some solutions as well. So your readers want to know exactly what you propose to make them do and how it relates to the problem that you have described. They want to know what you want to do, how it will solve the problem, and therefore they will ask what kind of a solution will be successful to this problem and what will we need to do. जो भी solution होगा वो क्या solution होगा जो आपने पहले problem बताई कि उससे वो solve हो और उसमें हमें क्या करना होगा. Another main question that readers will have will be about costs. What will your proposed product or activity cost your readers and is it worth the cost to them? जाहिर है आप अगर कोई प्रपोजल दे रहे हैं या अगर आप कोई प्रोजेक्ट कह रहे हैं कि करना में इन्वॉल्व होना चाहिए या कोई प्रोडक्ट बनाना चाहिए तो उसकी कॉस्ट क्या होगी और वो जो कॉस्ट है वो फीजिबल होगी या नहीं होगी इन्वेस्टर के लिए. सो दैट इज ऑल्सो अ की इशू दैट यू नीड टू एड्रेस when you're writing your proposals. Also, readers will question your capability. If your readers pay or authorize you to perform this work, how do they know that they can depend on you to deliver what they expect you to deliver, or how can they depend on you to deliver what you expect to deliver from that project? तो जाहिर है जब वो पैसा आप में लगाएंगे तो वो फिर ये भी जानना चाहेंगे कि आपकी कैपेबिलिटी क्या है, आप उस जो वो टाइम और पैसा आपके पीछे लगा रहे हैं आप उसके काबिल हैं या नहीं हैं. सो यू नीड टू शो इन योर प्रपोजल हाउ यू आर क्वालिफाइड टू अचीव what you expect to achieve from the proposal that you're making. Now, keeping all these things in mind, we need to devise a strategy for writing conventional proposals. The conventional superstructure for proposals is a framework for answering all these questions. And this has been found successful in repeated use in all kinds of situations where people need to write proposals. When you follow this superstructure, you will provide information on up to 10 topics, and we'll be just briefly I'll be showing you a chart where we will look at all 10 topics. In some cases, you will provide information of all the 10 topics that we will look at, but in other cases, in your proposal you will cover only some of the topics, and that will also vary from situation to situation. Even the briefest proposals, however, you will probably need to treat 4 topics definitely, and these 4 topics will be the introduction, problem, solution and costs. So ये जो 4 चीज़ें हैं, introduction, problem, solution और अखराजात, costs, ये तो आपको हर छोटे से छोटे proposal में भी आपने target करनी है, लेकिन लंबे proposals में और भी चंद चीज़ें हैं जिनको आप target करेंगे और वो भी हम देखते हैं जल्दी. But coming back to these 4 topics, when you provide information, you should provide more than just data. You should try to make persuasive points, and we're going to look at a slide which describes persuasive points for each of the 10 superstructures. अभी मैंने आपको बताया कि हम जल्दी देखेंगे 10 points, तो अब हम देखते हैं ये 10 points क्या हैं जिनकी हम बात कर रहे थे. The first topic, as I said, is introduction. The reader's question will be, when they are reading your introduction, the reader's question will be, what is the communication about? And that will be answered in your introduction. Your persuasive point, how you can persuade the reader, is that by telling them what you propose to do. अब जाहिर है जब आप जहां आप बता रहे हैं कि आप क्या प्रपोज कर रहे हैं, आपने उधर इस तरह उस चीज़ को बताना है कि आपके रीडर जो है वो परसुएड हो जाए कि आप जो करना चाह रहे हैं वो सही तरीके में एक सॉलिड चीज़ है, वो एक ऐसी चीज़ है जो रीडर के बेनिफिट में होगी. Another topic that is dealt with in proposals is the problem. Now the reader obviously will ask the question, why is the proposed project needed? ज़रूरत क्या है इस प्रोजेक्ट की, ये काम करने की ज़रूरत क्या है. अब उनको परसुएड करने के लिए कि इस काम की सचमुच ज़रूरत है, you need to tell them that the proposed action addresses a problem that is important to you, that is important to the reader. जब तक आप पढ़ने वाले को ये नहीं कन्विंस करेंगे, ये नहीं परसुएड करेंगे कि जो प्रॉब्लम है वो उस प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व करना उनके फ़ायदे में है, वो जाहिर है उस प्रपोजल को एक्सेप्ट करने में उनका कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं होगा. Another topic that needs to be addressed is the objectives. The readers will be asking, what features will a solution to this problem need in order to be successful? जो भी solution आप दे रहे हैं उसमें क्या क्या चीज़ें होंगी कि वो successful हो. So then you need to outline the objectives that the successful solution must achieve. कि अगर हम ये चीज़ें कर पाएंगे तो फिर हमारा जो solution है वो successful होगा. The fourth topic will be dealing with the product. Basically, the reader will want to know how do you propose to do these things. आपने solution बताया, अब reader ये पूछेगा कि अब आप ये लेकिन चीज़ें implement किस तरह करेंगे, जो आपने solution में काम बताए हैं वो काम किस तरह होंगे. And your persuasive point will be, you will start out by saying, here is what I plan to produce and here is how it will work effectively at achieving the objectives. Objectives का तो जिक्र आप पहले कर ही चुके हैं, तो अब आप तरीका बताएंगे कि ये मैंने करना है और ये इस तरह इन objectives को achieve करेगा. Then your reader will be asking you the question, are you going to be able to deliver what you have described here? And this question will address the areas of method, resources, schedule, qualification and management. ये सारी चीज़ें जो हैं ये आपके इस सवाल का जवाब देंगी जब आप इन सब चीज़ों को एड्रेस करेंगे कि आप क्या तरीका इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं, आपके पास रिसोर्सेज क्या क्या हैं, टाइम कितना लगेगा, आप किस तरह क्वालिफाइड हैं ये करने में और आप इसको मैनेज कर सकते हैं या नहीं कर सकते, या कोई और इसको मैनेज करेगा तो वो किस तरह मैनेज करेंगे. अब ये सारी चीज़ें जो हैं ये डिलीवरी की बातें हैं. सो ऑल दीज टॉपिक्स देन विल बी आंसरिंग टू दिस वन क्वेश्चन, will you be able to deliver what you promise? And you need to persuade your reader that yes, I will be able to deliver because I have a good plan of action, I have the necessary facilities, I have the necessary equipment, I have the necessary qualification and I will be able to manage this project successfully. So you need to give evidence of all these things. Lastly, your reader, your investor wants to know very importantly what it will cost them. So then you need to convince your reader that the cost is reasonable, that the cost is reasonable according to the benefits that will be that the reader will get out of by approving this project. ज़ाहिर है अगर cost बहुत ज़्यादा भी है तो आपने उसको ये दिखाना है कि है तो ये cost ज़्यादा लेकिन ये ज़्यादा इसलिए है, इसके long term हमें जो फ़ायदा है उससे उस हिसाब से ये cost शायद कुछ भी नहीं है. So you need to then show why it is feasible, because maybe it has some long-term financial benefit for the company as well, even if in the short term it seems expensive. So as you write, you will see the relationship amongst the 10 topics that we've just talked about. A lot of them are interlinked, and when you write, when you start writing, if you have these questions in mind, if you have these topics in mind, you will be able to effectively deal with the proposal and you will make a very persuasive proposal. Think of these topics as a sequence in which you lead your reader through the following progression of thought. You lead your reader from generally learning what you want to do, which will be the introduction. Then you take them to the problem, where the readers are persuaded that there is a problem, that there's a need, that there's a goal that is important to them. Then you're taking them to the objectives, where the readers are persuaded that the proposed action plan will be effective in solving the problem, it will be effective in meeting the need, it will be effective in achieving the goal that the readers now agree is important. पिछले स्टेप पे आपने रीडर्स को ये कन्विंस कर लिया है कि जो भी प्रॉब्लम है वो इम्पॉर्टेंट है, जो गोल अचीव करना है वो इम्पॉर्टेंट है. नाउ यू विल शो देम दैट the plan that you're proposing is effective and that you will be actually able to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. You will then take them towards the methods, resources, schedule, qualification, management, all the logistic parts. You will persuade them that you are capable of planning and implementing and managing the proposed solution, and you will also persuade them consequently that the costs are reasonable in the light of the benefits that the proposal that the project will bring. So if they take action, then in the light of the benefits that their action will bring, the costs are reasonable. Now, there is no guarantee that your readers will actually read your proposal from front to back, or that they will concentrate on each and every word that you write. ज़रूरी नहीं है कि जो भी आप लिखें आपके पढ़ने वाले पूरा एक एक लफ्ज़ पढ़ें, या ये कि आपका प्रपोजल उसी तरह से पढ़ें जिस तरह से लिखा गया है कि पहले पेज से लेकर आखिरी पेज तक वो पढ़ें. They might skim through it, they might just look at the recommendations, they might just look at key sections, what are the costs, what are the solutions, etc. So each section has to be very effective. Especially if it's a long proposal, then you really need to consider how your audience is going to evaluate it. Each volume of your proposal, if it's a long proposal, may be evaluated by a different set of experts. People who are specializing in their own domain, but no, they might not read your whole proposal. So ऐसे भी हो सकता है कि शॉर्ट प्रपोजल में तो जल्दी जल्दी जो पढ़ने वाले हैं वो की पॉइंट्स पढ़ लें, या शायद पूरा भी पढ़ लें, लेकिन लंबे प्रपोजल्स में शायद एक इंसान आपका पूरा प्रपोजल पढ़े ही ना, डिफरेंट लोग उसके डिफरेंट सेक्शंस को पढ़ें और फिर उसको इवैल्यूएट करें. But even when your readers will not read your proposal straight through, the account given of the relationships amongst the parts can help you. We talked about the relationships of the different topics. So if you keep that in mind, then that will help you, even if the readers are not even if one reader is not reading the whole of your proposal, or even if the readers are not reading your proposal in the sequence in which it is written. So if you keep these 10 areas in mind, you can write a very tightly knit, very effective proposal in which all the parts support one another effectively. So then even if one or two parts are missed out by the reader, the other parts will jump in to support what they missed out. Up till now, we just mentioned proposals that were several volumes long. Long proposals can be run up to 100 pages or hundreds of pages or even thousands of pages. On the other hand, short proposals could be less than a page. How do you decide how long your proposal needs to be? Sometimes you can be very brief and still be very persuasive. Often you will need to touch upon only a few of the 10 topics that we talked about in order to be persuasive. For instance, Helen's proposal involved only one person, Helen. We talked of Helen, an employee who needed to write a computer program, and her proposal only involved one person. It was going to be written by one person. It was only going to be read by two people. So it didn't need to be very long. Helen's proposal didn't need any management plan because her readers already knew of her capabilities. Obviously, her reader was her boss, so he knew that she was able to design computer programs. So she didn't need to write a lengthy background of her qualifications and how she was equipped to write that program. So therefore, she could omit that part. She didn't need to say anything more than maybe a few words about the experience that she had in writing such programs. And because she was asking for only 2 weeks' time to prepare the program, the budget that needed to be allocated for it didn't need to be very extensive, very lengthy. She didn't need to present a detailed budget report. She just needed to justify her proposal schedule. So although she needed the time, she really didn't need too many funds. So again, that section didn't need to be very long. However, in other situations, such as writing to maybe NASA or some other big department where you are maybe going to be involved in a project that is going to last over several weeks or months or years even, and it's going to involve a lot of funds, then the proposal would be correspondingly long. So depending on the scope, the nature, the purpose, the length and the readership of your proposal, you will decide the length of your proposal as well. As I just said, proposals that would be going to large organizations, large government organizations, you would need to address maybe all 10 topics, and your discussion of each of these must fully answer the questions, because maybe the whole proposal is not going to be read by one person. It might be split up and be read by experts, as we mentioned earlier. In the end, you need to decide how long the proposal will be, and while you're doing that, you will think about the questions that your reader will be asking as well, and what reaction they will have to what you say. So, although you will keep in mind questions that the readers will ask even in short proposals, there will be less questions asked because the reader knows more about you and your abilities. In longer proposals, in larger projects, there are more readers who know less about you. They will be asking a lot more questions. So you need to address all of those. Now, in the remaining of this lecture, we will describe in detail some of the 10 topics that form the conventional superstructure for proposals. As you go along, keep in mind that the conventional superstructure represents only a general plan, and you don't need to include each and every section in your proposal. You must use your imagination and creativity to adapt this superstructure effectively to your particular situation. In addition, as you plan and write your proposal, remember that the 10 topics identify the kinds of information you need to provide, not necessarily the titles of the sections that you will include. ज़रूरी नहीं है कि आपने ये जो सारे 10 टॉपिक्स हम देखेंगे कि आपने इन सब के सेक्शंस बनाने हैं या ये हेडिंग्स आपने देनी है अपने प्रपोजल्स में. ये सिर्फ इसलिए है कि इन चीज़ों के बारे में आपने इन्फॉर्मेशन देनी है. अब वो बेशक आप एक सेक्शन में सारी इन्फॉर्मेशन दें या 10 एरियाज को आप 2 या 3 सेक्शंस में दें या 10 सेक्शंस में दें, ये आपकी रिपोर्ट की लेंथ पे डिपेंड करेगा. In brief proposals, some parts may take only a sentence, or a paragraph may deal with several topics together. For example, writers often combine their announcements of their proposals, their discussion of the problem, and their explanation of the objectives under a single heading, which might be introduction or it might be titled problem or need, etc. तो एक heading के अंदर 2-3 different चीजें भी address की जा सकती हैं. Also, remember that the conventional superstructure may be used with any of the 3 common formats. A proposal may be written in the form of a letter or a memo or a book. So it could be any of these 3 formats depending on the length and the purpose of the proposal. While making your proposal, you should have sufficient information about the particular format that you're going to see. Now, let's have a look at the topics, each of them in turn. सबसे पहले introduction को देखते हैं. At the beginning of a proposal, you want to do the same thing that you do at the beginning of anything else that you write on your job. You want to tell your readers what you are writing about. In a proposal, this means announcing what you are proposing. आप क्या चीज़ propose कर रहे हैं, तभी उसको आप announce करेंगे अपने introduction में. जाहिर है आप कुछ propose कर रहे हैं, इसलिए उसको proposal कहा जाता है. Now you will need to consider how long and detailed your introductory statement needs to be. In proposals, the introductory statements or the introductory announcements vary considerably in length, but they are almost always very brief. By custom, the writers reserve the full custom of what they propose until later. They don't always say exactly what they're going to do right up front. They indicate it after they have discussed the problem and that their proposal is going to solve. Then they give the solution, or then they talk about what it is exactly that they will do. But initially in the introduction, they announce briefly what the proposal is about, then they talk about the problem and then reveal what it is that they will actually do. You may be able to introduce your proposal in a single sentence. Helen did this in her proposal. Let's have a look. I request permission to spend 2 weeks writing, testing and implementing a program for scheduling conference rooms. एक सेंटेंस में उन्हें पूरा बता दिया कि वो क्या रिक्वेस्ट कर रही हैं, उनका क्या प्रपोजल है. अब वो आगे बताएंगी कि उसको किस तरह करेंगी और उनका एक्शन प्लान क्या होगा. When you propose something more complex than a 2-week project, you may need more words to introduce it. Obviously, you will need to justify it more. You will need to give a longer rationale. In addition, sometimes you may need to provide background information to help your readers understand what you have in mind. If it's a complicated process, then you need to give some more background information so that your readers can actually understand what is it that you need to do. Now, after you have announced what you're proposing, you need to give the readers what the problem is. You must persuade the reader that your proposed action will address a problem that is significant to them. Your description of the problem is crucial to the success of your proposal. अगर आपके पढ़ने वाले को लगेगा कि जो आप चीज़ प्रपोज कर रहे हैं वो कोई इतनी मेजर प्रॉब्लम है ही नहीं, तो जाहिर है वो उसमें कोई इतना टाइम और पैसा इन्वेस्ट करने में तैयार नहीं होंगे. You must not only define the problem, but also make the problem seem relevant to the reader. There may be times when the readers define the problem for you. जिनके लिए आप प्रपोजल लिख रहे हैं, हो सकता है उन्हीं ने कोई प्रॉब्लम आइडेंटिफाई की हो और अब आप एक प्रपोजल लिख रहे हैं कि उस प्रॉब्लम को किस तरह सॉल्व किया जाएगा. अगर इस तरह की सिचुएशन हो तो फिर आपको सबसे कम रिसर्च करनी पड़ती है. You need to do the least research when your readers define the problem. Generally this happens when the reader has asked you to submit a proposal. You are not taking your own initiative, you have been asked to write a proposal. And in such a situation, your primary purpose in describing the problem will be to show your readers that you thoroughly understand what they want. You don't need to convince them that there's a problem. You just need to convince them that you understand the problem and you understand what the reader wants. At other times, you will need to devote research and creativity in writing a proposal. When you are in such a situation, you should find out what sort of problems your readers will consider important. Now, there can be times when the reader does not define the situation, but you must define the problem yourself. You may not have the aid of explicit statements from your reader to help you formulate the problem, and this is most likely to happen when you are preparing a proposal of your own initiative without being asked by someone else to submit it. जब ऐसी सिचुएशन हो तब जाहिर है आपको ज़्यादा कन्विंसिंग पावर इस्तेमाल करनी है, आपने ज़्यादा परसुएसिव अपने प्रपोजल को बनाना है, क्योंकि आपने इनिशिएटिव लिया है. जिस तरह के हमने हेलन के केस में देखा कि उनने खुद इनिशिएटिव लिया था, या जो हमने 3 राइटर्स की सिचुएशन देखी, लेकिन उनमें जहाँ 3 राइटर्स की सिचुएशन थी वहाँ उन्हें अपने डिपार्टमेंट को कन्विंस तो करना था, लेकिन गवर्नमेंट ने प्रपोजल्स मांगे हुए थे. हेलन के केस में उनके बॉस ने प्रपोजल नहीं मांगा था, उनने एक प्रॉब्लम आइडेंटिफाई की, उनने अपने बॉस को कन्विंस किया कि ये प्रॉब्लम सचमुच एक प्रॉब्लम है और इसका इस तरह हल हो सकता है. Now, once you've done this, then you talk of the product. When you describe the product, your proposal will produce. What is it that your proposal will do, that which is the product? You explain your plan for achieving the objectives you told your readers about. आपने जाहिर है अपने रीडर्स को कुछ ऑब्जेक्टिव्स बताए, आपने कहा अब मैं ये करूँगी तो इसका ये नतीजा होगा. Now you need to persuade them that you can actually do this. You need to describe your project or your product persuasively, and to do this you need to do 3 things. You need to tell your readers how you will reach your objectives, you need to provide enough details to satisfy your reader, and you need to explain the desirability of the product which will be the end result of your project. Then you will come to the method. The decision makers who act upon proposals sometimes need to be assured that you can in fact produce the results that you promise. जो भी हैं जो आपके ऊपर टाइम और पैसा अपना लगाएंगे, उनको कभी ये भी एश्योरेंस चाहिए और ये भी चाहते हैं कि उनको ये पता चले कि आप जो काम प्रॉमिस करें आप वो सचमुच कर सकेंगे और किस तरह करेंगे. ज़ाहिर है जब वो देखेंगे कि आप किस तरह काम करेंगे, उसी से उनको तसल्ली होगी कि आप ये काम कर सकते हैं. This happens especially in situations where you're offering something that takes special expertise, something to be customized or created only if your proposal is approved. Now, obviously, once you've outlined the method, you will need to also outline the resources that you will need. By discussing the facilities, equipment, and other resources to be used in your project proposal, you assure your reader that you will actually use whatever special equipment necessary to do the job properly. If part of your proposal is to request the equipment or to ask for the equipment, tell your reader what you need to acquire and why. What special purpose does that equipment fulfill in making your project successful? You also need to tell your reader about the schedule, about the time period involved, what will be done when, what are the specific deadlines. People who read and listen to your proposals have several reasons for wanting to know the schedule of your plan. The most common way to present a schedule is to provide a schedule chart, and we will be looking at schedule charts in future lectures. Also, I mentioned earlier that people want to know whether you're actually qualified enough to do the job or not, whether the project that you're proposing, will you be able to fulfill it? Do you have the necessary expertise to do that? When proposal readers are thinking and investing in your project, they want to be sure that the proposer has the relevant experience and capability to carry out the project properly. For that reason, a discussion of the qualifications of the personnel involved with the project is a standard part of most proposals. अगर आप अकेले उस proposal में involved हैं तो आप अपनी qualifications बताएंगे, आपकी expertise क्या है. अगर आपके साथ आपकी एक team है और लोग involved हैं तो आप उनकी भी qualifications बताएंगे कि जो personnel involved होंगे इस project में उनकी क्या expertise है. कई बार आपको अगर लंबा proposal है तो आपको उनके शायद resumes भी साथ लगाने हों ताकि जो लोग इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं उस प्रोजेक्ट में, जो रीडर्स हैं आपके, उनको तसल्ली हो जाए कि जो आपकी टीम है वो सचमुच क्वालिफाइड है. Then coming to management, when you propose a project that will involve more than about 4 people, you increase the persuasiveness of your proposal by describing the management structure of your group. अगर 3 या 4 से ज़्यादा लोग हैं तो फिर आपने अपने मैनेजमेंट स्ट्रक्चर भी बताना है ग्रुप में कि कौन लीड करेगा, किसका क्या रोल होगा, और उससे आपका प्रपोजल जो है वो ज़्यादा परसुएसिव हो जाएगा. This is basically because proposal readers know that even qualified people cannot work effectively if their activities are not coordinated. Anybody, whether they are qualified or unqualified, if they want to work in a team, then they need somebody to coordinate their activities and they need some kind of a focus to who will do what task. Lastly, coming to costs, one of the most important considerations as far as the acceptance of your proposal is concerned, when you propose something, you are asking the readers to invest resources, usually time and money, as I've said repeatedly. Naturally, you need to tell them how much the project will cost. In some proposals, you may demonstrate the reasonableness of the proposal by also calculating the savings that will result from your project. If you feel that the proposal is going to be very cost effective and it will actually save your readers some money, then you calculate that saving and show how the project will be so reasonable that it actually saves them some money. So in this lecture, basically, you learned about the different varieties of proposal writing situations. We looked at the proposal reader as an investor, and we talked about the different questions that they are likely to ask. We looked at the superstructure of proposals and looked at the different topics that were relevant to a proposal, which included the introduction, the problem, the objectives, product, method, resources, schedule, management, and cost. If you have any queries, please feel free to email. The address is english@vu.edu.pk. Until next time, Allah Hafiz.